Wow. I am looking out at the future of the aviation and aerospace industry right here in this room today. I'm really honored to be able to spend part of your day with you today. And I can't thank Women in Aviation, the Central Florida chapter, enough for doing events like this that give opportunities to girls, ladies, women who are interested in this industry that I happen to love dearly. You've already been looking at some really great things. I saw some of the static displays and the activities you guys have is really fabulous. But what I'd like to talk to you about today is kind of different pathways that you might see into this industry. Like as Courtney said, my name is Pam Underwood. I'm the director of the Office of Spaceports in the FAA Office of Commercial Space Transportation. That's a lot of words. That really, really is. Some of you might be wondering, what is a spaceport? Well, I'm happy to say you're sitting in one right now. This right here, the formal shuttle landing facility, which is right outside the doors, this hangar, all of this is actually a spaceport that is licensed by the FAA for horizontal and vertical launch. Or excuse me, horizontal launch and reentry. See, I've already messed that up. Where's Kelly? Kelly's like, we don't have vertical launch here, Pam. But that's what this is. This is a spaceport. Like Courtney said, believe it or not, there's 14 FAA licensed spaceports around the country. 3 of them are right here in Florida. Not all of them are horizontal like this one. This one, of course, takes off and lands kind of like an airplane, although they'll have some kind of a rocket associated with that activity. Some of them are vertical. But regardless, they are the future of the industry. You may not know this, but the United States has the best and most space launch infrastructure of any country, hands down without question. Not even close. Other countries are actually putting a great deal of money to bring US companies to their country to conduct activities. They want them to help develop their domestic capability. They want to use the expertise of the US industry, and the government for that matter, and I'll talk about that in a minute, to help develop their own. We are the gold standard. So the opportunities that you ladies have in this industry are tremendous. It's really, really exciting. Now you're probably familiar with what the FAA does for aviation. We regulate the design, operation of airplanes, and the pilots and maintenance that happens to those. All of that is the FAA. What you may be less familiar with is on the space side. We actually regulate launch and reentry and the operation of spaceports, like this one we're sitting in right now, and when anytime a US entity is doing it. So that means that there are launches that US conduct overseas. We have a company called Rocket Lab that conduct launches from Mahia, New Zealand. It's out in the middle of nowhere, by the way. Bunch of sheep out there. Great for public safety. We regulate those too, because it's a US entity happening. So anywhere in the world, if it's a US company doing it, the FAA regulates it. We're really small though. We only have about 140 people total. That's it. 140 people in the office. Do you know how many air traffic controllers there are? Like 10,000. So significantly different when it comes to the space side. Very, very different. But what's interesting is whether your interest is in aviation or aerospace, or maybe you haven't decided between the two, there's a lot of different pathways to get into this industry. And even when you get into this industry, and I'm going to talk through this a little bit, you're going to twist and turn around and find yourself in places that you didn't know you'd end up. So let me start out with what I did. When I was in your position, I wanted to be a pilot. How many of you want to be a pilot? Go ahead, raise your hand. Cool stuff. Yeah? I wanted to be a pilot too. So, got out of high school, started college. Well, I didn't have a lot of money to go into flight training. I think everyone who's done that understands how that goes. So I started in college. I knew I needed a degree. It was a community college, by the way, because again, I didn't have a whole lot of money even for college. I thought, well, I'll get an engineering degree. That sounds like a good thing to do. Along the way, I scraped up some money to get some flight training. But as you keep going, you learn so much more. So as I got into my engineering classes and finally found a little bit of money, kept taking flight training, I actually ended up transferring over to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, just north of here. Yay, go Embry-Riddle, woo, like it. Came over there. Then I really started specializing in what my degree ended up being, which is aerospace engineering. And I have to tell you, that's where I thought, you know, this is pretty cool. This might actually be better for me. And on the serious side, when I was doing my flight training, I'm not so good in small airplanes with air sickness, so I don't know that that would have suited me very well. One of those things you don't know until you try. But it doesn't mean I don't like flying. I actually love it. What I found is I think I could be more impactful and enjoy more in aerospace. But it wasn't what I started out doing, so my pathway turned a little bit. When I graduated Embry-Riddle with a bachelor's degree, thinking you're all hot and ready to go, I started working at Pratt & Whitney. That was actually really cool. Pratt & Whitney, West Palm Beach, Florida, not too far from here, again, south. In college, out of college now, living in West Palm, not a bad place to be. I worked on engine programs that ultimately resulted in the engines that went for the Joint Strike Fighter, for anyone who's old enough to know that is. I worked on those when they were testing those in West Palm Beach. Yes, I'm old enough to have done that. But that's so cool. I mean, you're talking about testing turbine engines to try to find out the envelope that they will ultimately perform in on these airplanes that these Studley pilots will fly. That's what I got to do as an aerospace engineer. So while I decided pretty early in my college career that maybe I wasn't cut out because of my air sickness and other things to be a super stud pilot, I found out being a super nerdy engineer could also get me into this industry that I really, really love. So I did that for a little while in West Palm Beach, and then ended up moving to Virginia, where my now husband was stationed at Fort Eustis. That's when things got really cool. I got to work in a wind tunnel. If any of you get a chance in college or otherwise to get to play around with wind tunnels, do it. Experimental aerodynamics is the coolest thing ever. See, this is the nerdy part of me coming out. The tunnel that I worked in, it didn't just have air in the circuit. They could use air or gaseous nitrogen as the test medium. They did that for high pressure, temperature, a bunch of nerdy stuff. But my tunnel was able to do that. So at the time, I got to work with Boeing, who was a customer of ours in the wind tunnel, on what now is the 787. It started out as a 7E7 when it was coming through the wind tunnel. We were doing pressure and temperature changes and moving flaps, and my daughter's like, oh my God, that's so nerdy, Mom. It is, but it was really, really cool. That's the things that I got to work on as an engineer. And I have to tell you, wind tunnel testing is funny, especially even engine tests. The hours kind of stink. Sometimes you're on 24-hour shift operations, but if you're young, you may not care. I'm old now, I don't like to do that. But you have to know that every time you think something, you had a plan, I wanted to be a pilot. Oh, wait a minute, now I'm testing engines. Oh, wait a minute, I'm gonna go work over in the wind tunnel. These twists and turns that you're gonna take through this industry just make you that much better. And every time you're gonna find something that's even more exciting. Case in point, after I finished with the wind tunnel, we moved to Florida. Now back down here on the Space Coast, I went from the aviation industry to space. Not meaning I went to space physically, but then I started working on the space shuttle program. That is the freaking coolest job you'll ever have. Anyone who in here worked on the space shuttle program, putting that vehicle together and seeing it launch into space was really, really exciting. Did I think I was gonna get into rockets? And nope, had no idea. But again, it's that twists and turns that you make through the industry. There's not one that's gonna find a mistake. You can always say, hey, maybe this is not gonna work out for me, maybe this will. Or if you take a chance, you're gonna find more in it than you ever expected. Once I was in the space shuttle, which was really cool, I found out, well, they're gonna, retire the program. So I transitioned over to the FAA, and I have to tell you, that's even more cool. The commercial industry today in the US is stronger than anyone around the country. This year, we've had the highest launch rates, over 100. Just by this country alone, of commercial industry. And it's gonna continue to grow. Now, my role, I actually end up working with international governments that are developing spaceports and space regulations, and I negotiate on behalf of the United States to try to get them to accept our stuff. In aviation, we have global standards for aviation. English is spoken on air traffic control. We kind of had a lot of play in making sure that our safety practices were influenced. I'm doing that now globally for space. Who would have thought? I started out in your seat wanting to be a pilot. And look at all the different ways that I went through the system to get where I'm at. What I'm suggesting is embrace it. And here's a few recommendations for you guys to consider as you start. Some of you are just thinking about getting started. Some of you might be a little bit older, ready to get started, going into college. Whatever that is, here's a few things that I can recommend to you. The first one is to be bold. Be bold. Don't be afraid to take an opportunity. You never know where those opportunities are going to take you. The fact that you guys are here today tells me that you're impressive. And you might be thinking, you don't know me, how do you know that? You had to do something to get here. You had to register. I believe you had to write an essay. My daughter did it, she didn't tell me, I don't know. I think you had to write an essay. You did something just to get here. Why? Because you're interested in aviation. You're interested in aerospace. So that's already, you did something. And I must add, all the teenagers in the room, you got up early on a Saturday. You didn't sleep in today. You know, I'm picking on my daughter a little more. She probably would have slept in if it wasn't for this, but she was excited about this. So be bold. You guys already have it because you did something to just get here. Take that and let it go into the next step. The next thing I want you to do is take a look at everyone in the room. Don't look at me, look at everyone you're sitting next to. All these ladies around in pink shirts and sitting around these tables. Look around. This is your network, right here. This is the start of your network. And you guys might think, that's corny. Now, I've got how many Instagram followers or whatever you kids do. I'm not even on Instagram. But the idea is, I'm talking about professional network. This is your network right here. When you are making your twists and turns and pathways through, that's where you're going to rely on your network. It's funny, we were just chatting today, all the different ladies that I knew in here from different past lives, different things along the way. Our network is going to get us where we want to go. So don't wait, start now. Everyone in this room is part of your network. And make it that way. To find your pathways, whether you're going in or winding through it, your network is going to be really, really important. Be ready for setbacks, or what might be perceived initially as a setback. Remember how I told you I just started with NASA and working on the space shuttle program, and gosh darn it, they announced the retirement of the program. I wanted to be like a kid. It's like, oh, I just got here. Really? This is cool. Transitioned over to the FAA. Look at it now. I have worked on licenses and applications. I've done compliance monitoring for some of the people in this room. I've done all of those things, including now I'm negotiating with other governments. Who would have thought? So what might be perceived as a setback might actually just be a course correction. Consider it that way. So prepare yourself. Don't overthink it. Embrace it. And go back to what I said originally, be bold. Whatever comes your way, grab a hold of it. Because it's definitely going to get you where you want to go. And definitely, the most important thing of everything, have fun. We are in such a cool industry. Have fun along the way. Many people that know me in this room, I'm kind of goofy. I like to have fun. I get a lot of work done, but I like to laugh and do things like that when I do it. That's going to set you apart. That is going to be impactful. That's not only going to make you enjoy it more and remember why you love this industry, but it's going to be impressive to the people you work with. So don't forget that. What we're doing is fun. So regardless what aviation or aerospace pathway you want to choose, I recommend, being bold, building your network, having all these things so that it can get you to the next step. This is an amazing industry. I have to tell you a little bit about the women piece of it. When I started at Embry-Riddle, the ratio was 10 to 1. I told you that, about 10 to 1. When I started into my early engineering jobs, the ratio was about the same. About that for female engineers anyway, in the business. I'm happy to say for the FAA anyway, my Office of Commercial Space, we're about 35 to 40% women engineers. That's impressive. That doesn't happen. And my uneducated view of NASA, because I have a lot of NASA friends too, it's about the same. Engineers are really, really strong. Well, that's great for engineers. But like I said, this industry is really big. How about pilots? When was the last time you got on an airline and there was a female flight crew, or even a female in the front of the plane at all? Right? Never. I fly a lot, and it is a rarity when I hear there's a female in the front. That's unfortunate. That needs to change. The people in this room can help that. Or think about the aviation mechanics, the people that work on the airplanes. There's very few of those as well. Yeah, there we go, right? Yeah. So that's what you want to start working on. Or how about this, air traffic controllers, for those of you that fly. How often do you even hear a female as an air traffic controller? Not very often. So while I'm really pleased to say that the numbers, I think, are going well for engineers, we got to start somewhere. We need you ladies in this room. Like I said when I opened, take a picture. You guys are the future. So whatever it is that you want to, find your passion, if it's flying airplanes, if it's working on them, if it's being a controller, help us as a network of women make an impact on this industry. Because we have an opportunity here to do that together. And I hope that as you go along the way, like I said before, have fun. Don't forget, this is a really cool industry. Some of the technology coming forward with the airplanes or unmanned aerial systems, it's impressive and mind-blowing. You know, even for space rockets, the things that we see on a daily basis at the new ways people want to launch stuff, we have things that people want to launch from tubes, like kind of like a cannon. Kind of crazy. In outer space, really? We have things that people would say they want to do suborbital point-to-point transportation. So you're going to take off in one place, go suborbital, and land in another place. That's really cool. Things like that are coming. Don't lose sight of that. Have fun in this industry. And like I said, remember, this is your network. This is where you're going to be. This is the future of the industry right here. I really appreciate you guys' time. I hope that it's been helpful, and I know that the rest of your day is going to be really enjoyable. I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys want to ask questions here or even on the side, because I appreciate your guys' time today. I'm the old part of the industry. You guys are the up and coming. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.